This appears to be occurring. Well, go on then. Might as well be now.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to my Shogun Episode 7 breakdown. Episode 7, entitled A Stick of Time, had a lot of the aspects that I look for in a good TV series all wrapped up into 1 hour. The violence, the intrigue, the good writing, the betrayal, and the surprise twist ending to end the episode off with. And I feel like in this episode in particular, we see Toranaga as close to hitting rock bottom as we've seen the entire series. Up until this point, he has been a very skilled tactician and proven to always be 1 or 2 or even 10 steps ahead of his enemy at all times. But in this episode, we really started to see a different side of Toranaga, and how he genuinely seemed unsure of what his next move was going to be at certain times in the episode, which led to him doing something that I don't think anybody anticipated we would see Toranaga doing in the series, and that is actually contemplating surrendering, knowing that submitting to the council would most certainly mean his death, and the death of his entire clan. The episode starts off with a flashback to a 12-year-old Toranaga winning his very first battle, which is pretty similar to the history behind the character that Toranaga is based on, Tokugawa, who fought his very first battle at the age of 17, followed by finding his first command at the age of 20. So very similar backstories with the exception of the age swap. And here we see Toranaga's enemy formally surrendering to him and getting ready to commit seppuku. And if nothing else, the scene definitely showcases just how brutal the ritual actually is, how it is not just a simple stab to the gut followed by a beheading, but rather how the victim will actually sit there and disembowel themselves from left to right, spilling out their guts entirely before the beheading occurs. Which again was just a very visceral scene to see it enacted with such gruesome detail. But next we flash back to current day with Toranaga awaiting the arrival of his brother, in hopes of striking an alliance with him to help replenish his ranks after the devastating earthquake claimed thousands of his soldiers. And right off the bat, I am seeing major red flags with Toranaga's brother. Everything about this guy's demeanor just screams, do not trust this guy. But next, we get a scene between Toranaga and Blackthorne, with Blackthorne trying to figure out just what exactly his role is going to be in the upcoming conflict, and whether or not Toranaga would want him to lead the naval forces with his cannons. But in typical Toranaga fashion, he refuses to divulge any information about his upcoming plans. And we're really starting to see Blackthorne's frustration manifest in this episode in particular, as he seemingly is just tired of being left in the dark all the time with Toranaga never sharing his thoughts. A frustration that we see boil over even more towards the end of the episode. But next we get an interesting scene between the Madam of the Willow World, Gin, and Omi, with Gin seemingly whispering into Omi's ear that there might be a little bit more going on between Blackthorne and Mariko. And I must say, Gin is incredibly intuitive, and she proves this time and time again throughout this episode. But next, we get to the big banquet scene, and this is where the entire episode starts to take a turn, both in tone and in story. With what starts off as seemingly a pleasant dinner of sharing stories and reminiscing of the past, quickly takes a dark turn as Toranaga's brother reveals his treachery, and how he has seemingly sided with Ishido in the upcoming conflict, as Ishido has offered Toranaga's brother his seat on the council, and most likely all of his lands and titles along with it. And I really did enjoy the subtle change in tone within this scene, with what starts off as a normal dinner sharing stories, quickly evolves into Toranaga's brother throwing some subtle shade at Toranaga with some of these stories that he ended up telling. And you can totally just feel this sense of dread coming right around the corner. Which, of course, it ultimately does with Toranaga's brother revealing the demands that Ishido and the council have put forth to Toranaga, ordering him to return to Osaka and submit to the council. And to make matters worse, it looks like Toranaga's brother has completely cut off all of the entrances and exits to Izu, leaving Toranaga and all of his forces trapped inside the village until he gives his answer the following day. And while Toranaga is contemplating his next move, we get a really phenomenal scene between Toranaga and Gin, the Madam of the Willow World. where she reveals her proposal to Toranaga to bring the Willow World and other similar establishments all under Toranaga's protection in Edo, as Gin believes that there is a prosperous future to be had there. And she's not wrong, as the city known as Edo in this time period will later go on to becoming one of the biggest cities in all of Japan, known as Tokyo. Which again is just another example of Gin really showing her intuition on display and how she really has a grand vision for the future, much like Toranaga does as well. And while the episode does not go into detail here, the proposal that Gin is offering Toranaga will later evolve into Japan's geisha girls, which become vastly popular over the next few centuries, even to modern-day Japan today. And I really enjoyed these scenes between Toranaga and Gin. The back and forth between the two was very interesting to watch, where Gin is seemingly one of the first people to come across Toranaga that is close to his level of intelligence and knows how to play the game just as well, it seems. And even goes as far to suggest that Toranaga would never have left himself and his garrison so exposed had he not have a plan if things went bad, insinuating that some of this might have been to Toranaga's design. We also get a very interesting scene between Blackthorne and Yabushige, with Yabushige trying to teach Blackthorne the proper way to hold a sword. And I love how Blackthorne originally starts to hold the sword, almost looking like he's getting ready for a fencing match. He just seems so out of place holding a katana. And even with all of the skullduggery that Yabushige has committed, I can't help but really like the character. And I know I've praised his performance in the past, but I really can't understate just how well Tatenobu Asano is doing in the role of Yabushige. And I always really look forward to the scenes between him and Blackthorne. But next, we see Toranaga finally make his decision as to what he is going to do, and he ultimately decides to submit to the council and surrender himself to his brother. A decision that Blackthorne doesn't seem too happy about, and I was very surprised about Blackthorne's outburst here in this scene and how there was seemingly no repercussions for his actions, especially in an episode where Toranaga specifically told Blackthorne to be on his best behavior.
Crimson fucking horse shit.
But then, of course, the episode ends with a very dark turn with the phenomenal scene we get in the tea house, where Toranaga's son ambushes Toranaga's brother in an attempt to take his life, which unfortunately only ends up leading to his own demise as he slips on a wet rock and completely caves the back of his head in, killing him instantly. Which was a very interesting scene to end the episode off with, and will undoubtedly shake things up in the next few episodes to come, and it'll be very interesting to see how exactly this affects Toranaga's decision to surrender. Now that his son has tragically died, will he indeed honor the council's wishes and surrender himself over to Osaka, or does Toranaga have another card up his sleeve that he is getting ready to play? So things are certainly starting to heat up now as we head into the final 3 episodes of Shogun. And definitely let me know your thoughts and comments down below. What was your favorite part of Episode 7, and how do you think the death of Toranaga's son is going to affect his decision in Episode 8? But that is going to do it for our Episode 7 breakdown of A Stick of Time, which was, again, another phenomenal episode that I would give a solid 8.5 out of 10. And definitely let me know down below how would you rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 as well. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And don't forget to come and hang out with us live every Monday and Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Shōgun Live Discussion. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and a huge thank you to all of the channel members, and we will see you on the next one.
来世でまた会えるやもしれんな。